Hi, my name is Evelyn Binder Carroll, and I would just like to introduce myself a little bit before we get started. I'm a data specialist in Nebraska. I've been in this position for about 3 years now. I work in what's considered a regional project. So we aren't housed within a school. We are outside and then we send staff into the school to serve and recruit children. We're a fairly new project. Our project's only been in effect for 5 to 6 years now. We currently serve 18 counties, and that includes a little over 600 students and youth. And this presentation is going to cover how we use Connecteam in our project to help organize our communication, organization of our data, and really to have maximum efficiency for serving our students and collecting the data and meeting requirements that we need for our program. So first off, I just want to kind of do an overview of the objectives of today's presentation. So I'm just really going to work on explaining the importance that we have found in connecting referral forms, just how we're ensuring that we're identifying, assessing, and supporting migrant students and their families. So I just want to cover how we use this within our program, understanding that it won't work for everybody. It's programmed the same that it works for ours. And just want to showcase how we use systematic communication that really goes in between our coordinator, our data, our services, and our ID&R efforts, and how there can be an effective passive communication too for individuals who just need to be informed of information and not necessarily need to have an action step. Then we're just going to kind of look at the structure, how we have it set up, and the customization of that, how we use it for communication amongst our stakeholders, how we've used it to improve the recruitment process and the communication and interaction between that, and then just ensuring accuracy of information that's provided during that process. I like to just start off with no assumptions on who knows how to use Connecteam. And so there's just two sections to Connecteam when we're looking at it. On the left-hand side, you can see the user view. So users who are added to have access to different levels of each form. So a user is an individual who needs to input information for somebody else to view or access. So an example here is this person on the left would have access to a contact log and a request form. And once again, that's set up however meet your program's needs. Then on the right-hand side is the manager section of Connecteam. So once again, you can see the correlation between that contact log and that request form over here on the right-hand side. So this person would have access to make a contact log and to review the manager's side of the section. And we'll dig into those here in a little bit of what each side of those looks like and the benefits and how to utilize those. Right. So we'll just move on to the next form. Okay, so this is a form that we use to help coordinate efforts between ID&R and our services, as well as some input from data and coordination. So the purpose of this form is we just to gather data by means of specific procedures so that our methods are thought out to fit the needs of our program. This form is completed with each new COE. And with this, we're able to view who's accessing the form, some different trends and activity. So then it's just really utilizing that data validity, meeting timelines, such as the timely contact with families after the COE is accepted, the assessment of an individual within the 30 days, looking at the systematic process for collecting MDEs, and then just that overall collaboration and reduction of duplication of efforts within our program. And so this gives that at a glance overview of like who is using the form. So on the bottom, you can see like the username, last name, mobile number. So this is who has utilized the form, who's been assigned to it, and then who's actually accessed it or submitted information into this form. In the top left, you can see the access trends. So this is who's inputting information during certain times. You are able to filter this data by the time or the date stamps over here on the top right corner if you want to kind of drill down and find more specific information within your program. And then in the middle right over here is the activity where you can see what's been going on in this form. So you can see, like myself, I've made some changes to some different parts of this form in preparation for this presentation. So moving on. So this is the form that I discussed that is completed at the time of every new COE in our program. And so one benefit of this just from the beginning is that the recruiter who submits this is able to view this information during the lifeline of this entire process. So on the left-hand side, you can see the two columns. The first column is what the user would see when they are going to go check to see an overview of an entry that they have submitted. So on the far left is just, you can see entries shared with me and my entries. So in this case, if a recruiter was wanting to go check and on a progress of a COE that they submitted and the follow through with the rest of the project, you can come to the second column. We've created some at a glance sections to kind of help minimize efforts if they're not needed. So that top part of that second column, you can see says ESU 9 new COE form. And as you can see, following those dots, they're color coordinated to know what areas have been completed and what areas have not. As part of our process, after the COE is being completed, we follow the steps on the right-hand side. So jumping over to these next 4 columns, you can see if you look at the background where it's kind of grayed out, that's the information that the recruiter submits, which lists all the needs of the family, anything that a service provider or a data person might know about this, might need to know about this incoming COE at the time that it's completed. So as you can see, we have this COE status. Here it says test. On a typical entry, it would say accepted or rejected. We do have that option as well if needed, but primarily we use it for accepted. And once that's submitted, and then the service provider is assigned, the service provider for that area gets automatic notification that this COE has been accepted. They're able to then go in and view the information that the recruiter has submitted for this family. So we have a way of submitting, like if the family is homeless or if they have any other immediate needs. We also have a ranking system and like orders of priority of families who might need services sooner than others. So then as you can see going down, following through that process that we have in place for our systems, the support service provider has completed the visit with this family. We've recently added this section that discusses the date that the support service provider has completed that. It's new, so it's not on this entry, but we're really trying to make sure we have that information from like the acceptance of the COE date until the contact with the family, just making sure we have a way to really assess those timelines and that we're meeting what we need. So in the second column, you can see, so this is for any services that the recruiter is identified during the time of the interview. So the recruiter goes, meets with the family says, you know, maybe I'm concerned about my student's speech. And so then they would put that in this form, and then the service provider would be the one to follow up with the family to help get them those services. And so as you can see, the service provider notes for this was that very case. And so the note says, talked with mom, the referral is in progress. So it's just letting the recruiter know anytime they can go in and check this and really see what the progress is of those items that they needed. Additionally, we also have our instructional services in here. It's kind of that update and letting the recruiter know kind of the fall through of the rest of that process. So the instructional services for this student are in progress. So the CO has been accepted, the family's already been met with, the support service provider that we have has, started the process and the referral. And at this point, they're receiving in-home services through our pre-K service provider. Then we also have all of our data components, that our project requires that we have for each new COE. So it's just that ongoing communication with the family. We send them a welcome packet, welcoming them to our project, sending them a copy of their COE, any relevant information that they might need for that onboarding process. And then that the school is contacted, that the schools deliver that information, that this family or these students qualify for free meals, and getting those risk assessment factors sent back to us so that we can enter that for the data component. And then there in that third column, you can see the data specialist notes. At this time, there is none. We do have that section for follow-up. So if something's happening in this process and it needs some attention, we can identify a coordinator or somebody else that might be able to lean in and help support with something specifically within this process. And then as you can see on the bottom of that third column, that's kind of the coordinator's notes, the overview of where this is at, if there's any additional attention it needs, any additional efforts from the coordinator. And then we review each student during the PLC process, and we make any notes that might be needed for the team during that time with this student. So as you can see on this fourth column, it says PLC notes, student will be invited to summer school. And so during our PLC process, we review all areas of each COE. If there's any additional information that we need to review that might be beneficial for this family or for this student specific. And so we have, what you can see here is the statuses that are actively viewed. There is a way to passively view information, depending on how you set that up. Say you wanted less information and you just wanted the recruiter to know that the family's been visited. You could still have all of these items in the second, third, and fourth column available and still look like this in the process, but where it's just not accessible in the user view. So not to overwhelm somebody who may not necessarily need all of that information. So it really serves that two-way communication. The recruiter letting the service provider and data person know any needs or the expedited procedure of the family. And then likewise in return, letting the recruiter know the process of where everything is with that student or that family. That's how we utilize this form specifically. So this is the admin view of this form. So everything that's entered on that last form that I just showed actually will show here throughout this form, the entry, the manager part of it. So what the recruiter would have entered during this time is all on this first section. So it's really, is this family homeless? If they are homeless, what kind of homeless are they? That really kind of determines how fast we're out there, any needs they might have additionally to what we already have in process. When the COE was completed, we want to make sure, maybe those earlier COEs that were completed, maybe they have priority over somebody who was just a week ago, if they have the same standard of need. Then we're also looking at if the recruiter provided any activities during their interview. Maybe there might be some need for a follow-up. So perhaps a recruiter had referred a parent to an early childhood education facility. Then this here is where they would provide information and the information for the follow-up for our service provider to come along and still help support that process. As part of our process, when a family is homeless, as you can see on the second column all the way to the right, if a family is identified as possibly McKinney-Vento eligible, we do have a process to identify if somebody in our project has completed that state form for the McKinney-Vento program. Then on the third column, you can see we've listed, you'll have the students' names and their age. So when a service provider goes in, they're able to have an at a glance of the age of the students that they're going to be in and serving, so they can prepare for that ahead of time. The schools that the students attend, in case they need to reach out to the schools, maybe the counselor, EL, the secretary, depending on what they might need to get contact with. And then likewise, the student or the family information to make that initial contact with the family. So this coordinates with the color-coded section that I showed earlier on the user side. So this is where those changes are made and adjusted. So as you can see, the recruiter notes, perhaps there was something the recruiter needed to do a follow-up on, and this information goes here. And then the status, when it's accepted, and then when we're doing that initial contact to make sure we're meeting that deadline of contact with the family. And then once again, if the visit's completed, the status of that visit and the date of that. And so you can see these sections here are exactly like on the user end, but this is where you manipulate these pieces, you put in your notes so that the user can see it on their end. So this is the management side where we use for the data piece, we use it for coordination. We pull this information for meetings we might have or follow-up that service providers might need, or information for specific families if we might need it, if it comes along. So here, I'm going to pull up. So there's those ways to view that information, but additionally, you're able to export this information into Excel. So I've pulled an example here. Just a second, let me pull this up. So as you can see here, you're able to export this information. You're really able to drill down and assess information and use it for any strategic planning or training or anything that might
Are you
be.
sharing? Sorry, are you sharing on Excel?
Yeah, well, it's in Sheets, yeah.
I don't see it yet. I don't know if anybody else can see it, but I don't see it. Put in the chat if anybody can see the sheet yet. Yeah, we're just seeing the guy.
Okay. All right. Well, I just put it in the chat.
Oh, okay, great. So everybody click on that chat link. Oh, it's not shared. Oh, now I can see the Google sheet on your side, but the other
Okay.
one needs access, you know.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I'll change that setting. Yeah. But so it is showing now on the screen?
Yes, you just probably want to make it a little bigger because it's small.
Okay.
That's good.
Thank you. Okay, so you're able to really come in here and really, like I said, drill down your information, whether you're looking at information per recruiter, maybe students within a certain age range, or maybe certain languages within certain towns. You're able to come through and just evaluate that information at a deeper level. Likewise, you're able to pull this for any reports you might need. So say, you have some timeline for your processes, you can just come in here and pull this data and assess. It's like the difference between the acceptance of the COE and perhaps that initial contact, within our processes. What is that timeline and are we meeting that on a consistent basis? Maybe if we have COEs that aren't accepted, coming in here and seeing if it's certain age ranges, just kind of that evaluation of your information that is done on a semi-regular basis. And then it comes into as well, same as those data components, specifically data and those timelines that are required by programs. Like information is added or maybe risk assessments are entered, those types of things. Okay. Let me move over my screen. Okay. Is it back to the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So is there any questions so far up to this point? You are able to unmute yourself and ask any questions if you have them or put them in the chat. That is fine as well. Doesn't look like any at this point. I'll just keep going, and then if there's any questions further, feel free to put it in the chat or unmute. All right, so moving on from this form, we also use Connecteam as a referral process for our state. We have created some different filters to really be able to understand where referrals are coming from, specifically from where they're coming from, maybe N6 or the IDRC referral tool, our schools, different things like that, but then that coordinated process so that everybody stays informed. So the purpose of this is to ensure proper identification, assessment, and support for migrant students and their families, facilitates comprehensive data collection, effective communication among stakeholders, and provides a clear link between the submitter and follow-up actions. One thing we identified pretty early on was that somebody would complete a referral with a recruiter and we just weren't real sure about, maybe a year later if this family had been referred before and if they qualified or, if we were familiar with them in the program. And so this has been really helpful to be able to go back and reflect to understand if it's a student who's been referred and if they have maybe with a different person, whatever the case may be. So it's really able to understand the information as it's coming through for referrals. Okay, so this is in the same form. So on the left-hand side again is the user form, and on the right-hand side is the manager form. And so on the left-hand side, you can see these are entries that have been submitted for referrals. These are actually my referrals that have been submitted. I use this for my account. At a glance again, so it's easy enough just to come through and see, okay, I can see that most of the referrals I've submitted are complete and I can really go in there. And if I have maybe a school that reaches out to me and says, hey, I referred this student to you a few months ago. Do you know where they are in that process? And so I can come in here, like this student specific. I could be like, they were interviewed in August. Unfortunately, they didn't qualify at that time. If you think there's information that's changed, we could re-interview them. But that way, just I have that access to that information from the recruiter's efforts that they gave during that time. And then here on the right-hand side, you could see as well that we're able to assess like who is submitting information to this form. And And once again, it's however somebody wants to create their form and who they want to allow access to. We've kind of broadened that a little as we've experienced some different needs in our program. And so some examples are of mine just up there on the top of different students, and you can kind of see who's submitting for what areas maybe receiving those referrals from. You can see that on that top piece. In the middle piece, you can see where those referrals are coming from. So is it coming from within our project? Like our staff is identifying, hey, this person just moved here. Perhaps they might qualify. Is it coming from a school? Is it coming from M6? Is it coming from the IDRC referral tool? How are really getting that information for referrals and that recruitment process within our project and within the state. And then on that bottom piece, you can also see there that it once again showcases those attempts of contact that the recruiters have to really meet that best practice of 4 days from the time of the referral that OME suggests that we try to follow. So really identifying, are we able to meet a family? If we're not, kind of what's happening, what, we're not. Do we not have a correct phone number? Do we not have correct parent information? Or maybe it's the wrong town, or maybe they've moved already. Just able to kind of see that information for each referral that we might have. Likewise, being able to see our follow-up. So like it's on the bottom section to the far right, you can see the COE status. So this COE is the one that is exactly the same on the left, where it states the ineligible, and then interviewed, did not qualify. And then there would be some notes explaining kind of what happened. Maybe there wasn't a qualifying move, or there was a qualifying work, whatever the case may be. And they were able to use that later on as well, just to assess that data, like ineligibility. Are we seeing trends? Is there information that, is originating from certain areas that would just be good awareness for us to know? And so once again, this is just another data. Let me pull this back up. Data speaks 1,000 words, right? So anytime you're able to see this information, are you able to see the sheets?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So once again, you're really just analyzing that data and comparing information that might be helpful in that further processing, whether it's in your strategic planning or just maybe your ID&R plan, whatever that looks like for your project. And so maybe we're making that first contact we're making it in a timely fashion. And then how are we making those contacts? What are those notes? And then maybe we're finding a whole bunch of interview did not qualify. Maybe that's coming from a specific area. So maybe that's, ID&R efforts for information for schools that, we could give them to help them understand our process or our qualification of our students and what that entails. Also just making those notes. So like on this row 10, you can see this family just newly arrived from Texas. Or there's an active, on row 13, you can see that there's an active COE they already have. They've moved to another area. So it'd be beneficial to get a hold of them for that qualifying information to make sure there's no lapse in eligibility for students. One of the best things about Connecteam that we have found is you're really able to customize it for what you need in your program. We have found these things, and as we're coming along, like I introduced on let me go back. Up here, we've started adding certain dates. So we can really say, are we finding time to meet with families in a timely manner? Are we able to reach them? Kind of what's our benefits? What's our downfalls? Where's those things that we could, those areas where it can really find progress, find areas to do a little better for ourselves. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the presentation. So sure, that analyzation of that information, and just those tips and tricks, we found like the color coordination. That's really helped it just at a glance. So we can just scroll through, see if there's anything we need to complete or anything that needs followed up. Or additionally, if there's been follow up with other information that we've submitted that um, needs accessed or completed. So we use this, the two forms that I completed for this are primarily IDNR focused, but we do use it in many capacities in our project. We use it for data. All of our data updates are submitted through here. Project communications, so if we have a student who, say, drops out, um, one person is able to submit that information to data, but also include the coordinator and maybe the service provider that sees them in the school. So within one communication effort, it reaches many people to really help that efficiency and collaboration within our program. All right. Is there any questions so far about what it could be used for, or any processes you think it might be helpful in? Any benefits that you've seen with similar processes, or any thoughts on if this might be beneficial in your program, or anything you see that may not work? Any questions or insight?
There's a comment from Bernardo.
Okay. Share the new template. So what I could do is, if you want to send your email, I can do it that way. I can just do like snips of it and send it. Since we are no longer on the IDRC um, platform. The state of Nebraska has purchased our own instance of it so we can manage it from all aspects. And so I'm not able to share templates anymore, unfortunately. But if you just want to send me your email, perfect. And I can definitely send the template for that. You're very welcome.
Yeah, and I'll send them to you from the chat.
Okay, great. Okay, so somebody is considering Connecteam for your state. Definitely. We really found that efficiency and that communication, those two things alone have been very powerful in our efforts, like I said, outside of just IDNR. Emily, we are. So we've just in the last year really started implementing Connecteam statewide in our program. And I anticipate when we come together in September, really being able to do some mind mapping and brainstorming and really understand how everybody's using it and the benefits that we're all going to experience from that. So Emily, I understand that inspiration and being able to see it come through and what everybody else is doing and how that can also help us.
Yeah,
Catherine.
you can unmute yourself.
Oh, sorry.
I think Catherine wants to unmute herself. Go ahead, Catherine.
Thanks. So we're considering Connecteam, as you saw, for our state. And I think the pushback or the hesitation has been mostly from the recruiters, that they felt like it would slow down the process and kind of double the forms or the paperwork they'd fill out between doing also doing the Connect Team forms.
Mhm.
Is that something that you found has been a challenge for your recruiters, or is there a way around that?
Yeah. So in the beginning, definitely. But Connect Team has grown alongside of us. And so there's actually some really cool things that they've put in, like with their data validation efforts. And so then that kind of eliminates or reduces those dual efforts. And I would definitely love to meet with anybody one-on-one and kind of show you what we're doing and how to manage that. Because yes, it used to be that when it first came out, Connecting, when we started using it about 2 years ago, the recruiters have to put the students' names twice or the family's names twice. And now that's a step I've actually taken on, super easy from our reports. So definitely some workarounds on how to make it work for everybody and still get the information that reaches all of our staff that we need it to. So yes, it's been very, very, very helpful on the data end, being able to track that information and go back and understand why we made certain changes, having everything in one place. Who's had access to information. That's also kind of stepping outside of IDNR specific, but it could also impact IDNR. Is like we've had a service provider who's been out for a time period. Somebody else took over her position for that time period. She was able to say, "Hey, Evelyn, I need information on this kid. Do you have it?" So able to pull a report, and she's like, "Oh, that's the person I need to talk to for that referral that's in process." So really able to have that information at hand for staff in all capacities has been really helpful. Access to that form. Let me just hop in real quick. I will allow access to that form real quick. Somebody had requested to have it real quick again. And that way, if there's any questions regarding that as well. It's really nice that you can pull this information. Um,
That's another question asking how many years have you guys used the Connect team? And what did you use
so, oh,
before?
sorry, go ahead.
No, and what did you use before Connect?
So like I said, I am brand new. I've only been here in the program for 3 years. Previously, like services and everything like that was just managed through paper. So it's kind of a lengthy process. This has really helped. Sorry, just trying to sign in. I lost access to my. So the ability to kind of put that information in one place. Previously, they were doing Excel sheets and just sending that to their data specialist or their coordinator, whoever. Okay, I've updated the access on that document, so whoever's on there should be able to look at that now,
You
or
want to put the
manipulate
link
it.
again?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
thank you.
Yes.
So when you download your document from Connecteam, then you copy it from Excel to Google Sheets? Is that
Yeah,
what?
we really don't. I just did it on here for presentation purposes, but usually there's the only time we really do it in anything with Google Sheets is during our PLC, which is our weekly meeting where we're really evaluating where our process is with each new COE and each student. So, but otherwise, yeah, I just pull a report daily, usually for data or any services that I need to enter, anything like that.
Okay, good.
So yeah, previously it was just paper. A lot of, I'm sure anybody who works, with recruiters, lots of any way we can access people and information. So phone calls, email, text messages, all of those avenues. And so one thing that's been really helpful for us is to have one central point for that communication.
Great. Any more questions? You can unmute yourself as well. And I'll stop recording just in case they want to ask questions off recording.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, thank you.